this is my Christmas video. Something a little bit different compared to other years. And I'm at Wildcraft Brewery today. How many of you know how to make beer? Let's take a look around. That's just down here actually, the brewery. Not a very big brewery, it's a little micro brewery, and the beers are incredible. I've tried a couple of their beers and been absolutely fantastic. I'm going to do a little beer review just a little bit later, and yeah, have a little tour of Wildcraft breweries. Yeah, it's just down here. Park my car just there, and yeah, the brewery's just in there. Yeah, take a look.
The rest of them. If we take the COVID rules by the letter, then that's a shop over there, so you have to wear your mask. This is hospitality, so you don't. However, if you want to, obviously just whatever you feel comfortable with. I won't while I'm talking because this gets really hard. So yeah, this is Wildcraft. We started off about 5 years ago now, 2016, and it started with me being a teacher originally. That really wasn't working for me. It was hurting. So while I was being a teacher, I used to drink quite a lot, and that was the way you got through it. And what we did, I thought, what's the cheapest way of doing this? I didn't have many of those. I think it's a bit like gambling, it just gets you into it, start off quick, and then you have to keep going. And then when you go to this size, then you have the disasters. Yeah, so I started doing an all grain, and people really like those as well. It was my local community in Old Coltishall which really got behind me and said, look, Mike, your beers are nice. Why don't you look at doing this professionally? Teaching really isn't making you healthy anymore, so have a look at it. It was one of those things where it's like, how the hell do you start thinking about this? And I haven't got time to look at it. But as soon as I started, things started to roll. And they rolled really well until literally within 6 months, the only two things I really needed were a building and some money. Two quite important things, to be fair. However, two achievable things if you can get to know the right people. And it just so happened that after a Norwich City match, I went down to the Coach and Horses on Thorpe Road, and I met up with a guy in there called Mark. He'd been to the match as well. We had a couple of pints, chatted away. He was quite entrepreneurial, wanted to do something. We just chatted. We were both in the same place. Both of us had no money. However, he did mention he had a place where he might be able to do something. And about a week later, he gave me a ring and said, how big was the place you needed? Now, at the time, I kind of had to make it up off the top of my head because I didn't really know. So I just kind of went, 900 square foot visited, and yeah, this was the space he had. It looked very, very different to this. So it had no ceilings, had no floors, this was a mud floor. We need about £100,000 to start a brewery because we didn't have any working capital whatsoever once we started. All the words that I'd heard when I was setting up, I'd never really processed or thought about it. So yeah, we kind of went, right, we've got that money, we had to put the floor in, we had to put the ceilings in, we had to get the equipment, and the equipment actually just came separate off eBay. We found various people who were selling different tanks and went, right, that'll do, that'll work, let's do it. Yeah. And then had the very difficult job of then trying to plumb them all together and make them actually work together when they weren't supposed to. As it is now, it came in the top 10, what was it named in the top 10 gluten-free beers in England, by the BBC Good Food Guide. So that's really helps. Yeah. Completely lost my train of thought. Definitely shouldn't have been at the pub last night. That's the
it's part of the industry, right?
It is, yeah. It's research. All research. Yeah. The fact that I've had those beers 100 times before has nothing to do with it. But yeah, so we've got the equipment. So we've got three different things. We've got a hot liquor tank over here, looking very decrepit and old, as is all of the equipment. Our feeling decrepit and old after doing this for 5 years. This is basically just hot water. That's all that's in there, water being one of the main ingredients. 99% of your beer is made up of water. Your water has to be right. And we found that when we started off, we were using Anglian water, and they added various into the water at various times in the year that gave us off flavours of beer, to the point where it actually made it taste like plastic and chemical. Because they had something called chloramide. That reacts with the enzymes in barley and then produces this.
Yeah.
We've invested now in a borehole, which is halfway up the field. So all the water is pure Buxton water. Not that Buxton, because that get me in trouble. We've got issues with this, because one day when I was transferring the water from there into the mash tun here, there were some bangs and some weird noises, and it turns out that between the top of the lip here and the lid, some steam had got in there, it caused a vacuum, and now that, where it was that, is now like that inside. Also quite angular on the outside as well. Should be a nice perfect cylinder. That's caused a few issues because now it doesn't hold as much water. So I now have to heat it up far more than I normally would to then add cold as we're going through to get enough water to go through the day. But basically, yeah, that's it, the hot water. We make sure that's heated up in the morning, ready to come across, and that comes on top of the barley, which is in here. So we fill that with water, barley goes in on top, and then it's left to steep for an hour. And because we get the temperature to the right point, which is about 67 degrees, or roundabouts, depending on the beer that we're doing, that then causes the enzymes to break down to sugars, and the sugars are what we need later to create the alcohol. Various different grains. This one here is Marisota, if I pass that around. It's quite a sweet smelling grain, world renowned for being one of the best grains for brewing, and just so happens that Norfolk is the best place to grow it. So we grow a lot of it on the Norfolk coast, and it's exported from here right across the world. You'll find a lot of the American craft breweries you'll see, like Chris Malt in the background. You know, it's all in the place. Yeah. It's quite a thriving industry. The wild summer that we're drinking at the minute just uses that. That's all it's got in it. Plus a little bit of wheat, because wheat helps with the head. But for too much wheat, it goes hazy, so you have to be kind of careful on the amount you put in. Other beers will be that plus something else. And the plus something else is always quite interesting to see how much a difference that can make to a beer. So one of the things that we did when we had a guy from Simpsons malt come across to us, so we just done a doubly roast malt. Now all that means is they've taken one of these and they've put it in the roaster for longer. So it comes out, and it's a lot darker, and you'll notice there's quite a different smell to it as well. Malt is like coffee. Different ways that you treat it in that roasting room will give you different flavours out of it. So this double roast, because it was new, I was like, well, how can I work out what it was in a brew? Because that's the worst thing. Mainly now I'm just working in this, so I have to know straight away what to do, because that's quite a lot of beer to waste if it's wrong. So because I still haven't tested it at the time, I just took a batch of Wild Summer, added 10% of the whole grain bill, was this. So now in this one, I use 150 kilos of this with 15 kilos of that. They completely, first of all, the ingredients. I want special brown ale, because it was brown. I thought, well, that works. And then we got told by camera that really as a small brewery we should be classifying our beers correctly. That wasn't the correct classification. And that actually, if we put it into a best bitter category, we'd probably win awards for it, whereas if it's a special brown, we wouldn't. So we changed it, and we did actually win a gold at the Norwich Beer Festival with that beer the first year.
What's considered a brown?
I don't know. I don't understand the difference.
Well, camera, you know, filling the piece of information.
Yeah. Oh dear, I keep saying things I shouldn't say when I'm on video. So yeah, that's Bill. When we started off, I started off with kind of these traditional beers. So we've got Wild Summers, it's a traditional English ale. Wild Bill, traditional English bitter. With the stouts, with an IPA. Because at that point 5 years ago, the market was flooded with the really heavy American hops, IPAs.
Yeah.
So the ones are here, and that's when we start bringing that up to the boil. Two reasons for bringing it to the boil. First reason, First reason is because there are off flavours that are produced within that barley
Yeah.
that you do not want in the final beer. You can actually boil them off. That's the first thing. Secondly, we want to get the proper utilisation out of our hops. They need heat, and they need to be there for a certain amount of time. So we start off putting in hops for an hour. Most of our boils are either an hour or an hour and a half. We'll put in some hops at the start of that time. They're the ones that are going to give you the business. As you go further through, because it's not in there for so long and doesn't take on so much of the heat, you get less of the oils out of it. The oils give the business, so you don't get as much business. And you can get more flavour and aroma than later you put it through. So what we tend to do, we could work with just one hop, put it into the bitterness at the start, and then take the different flavours from it at different steps during that boil. What we do, what most breweries do, is use different hops at different times as well. So we can use, we can have 4 or 5 different times we put them in, and we might have 4 or 5 different hops as well. On that note, shall we get some different ingredients in? Somehow it keeps me entertained.
So how many trips of like the nettle beer would you do a year?
We're going to do, well, at the minute we have to do 2 or 3. We'll go on for this. This is 750 litres, so we brew 750 litre time at the moment. Our old fermenters are these in here, on wheels. They were an absolute nightmare because we have to drag that out. I do not like using these at all, and we now have these, so why would I bother using those?
So do you just move the burner? But do you heat them up, or are they
No,
just
they don't need to be heated up.
fermentation takes?
They're literally fermentation. So once we've heated up in here, added the hops, gone through the boiling process, we put the heat exchanger back here, run cold water from our borehole through one way, hot liquor through the other. The cold water takes on the heat, comes back to here, already heated up, and then hot liquor gets cold, goes into a fermenter. That's where we add the yeast, and then it starts. It starts going. These are 1,500 litres. Two of that. So, small one, Buxton farms. So the idea is they're going to grow our grain for us, and then we're going to brew it. Once it comes out here, or they come and collect it at the moment, they'll go straight to their cattle. On site, so it'll be even easier. They'll so you need a lot of space just to store stuff. Plus we've got all the casks in here and the bottles and everything else, so that will be very fine. So yeah, we've done brewing to these at the minute, like I said, and yeah, they'll stay in there for about 10 days. So what we've managed to do by getting these, actually this was like literally the beginning of lockdown we managed to get these, because all of a sudden we had cash flow, which we'd never had before, because we were a pub-led business. They were taking anywhere between 30 and 120 days to pay, and we obviously have to pay everything out up front. So we were always cash strapped, and then all of a sudden the public started buying off us, and they had to pay up front. Amazing. I've never known that. You always hear about cash flow issues within business, but I've never known how much is true and how much it can change. We actually went up to Bolton at the beginning of lockdown when everything was kicking off in Bolton. It was like the epicentre of COVID at that point. I went and picked these up, really good price off another brewery which was expanding. And they changed my life. I can just transfer to them and live. I don't have to wheel it anywhere or anything. They clean where they are. They have a clean in place system. Whereas this, you have to get in and scrub. And they're also jacketed, so keep them at exactly the right temperature for fermentation. When I started, I thought I was going to be clever. Because when you're homebrewing, you need to keep your bucket like in a warm place, keep that fermentation going. So I made this room as a wall. What I hadn't really banked on was when you get that much of it in a vat, it causes its own reaction, which actually creates heat. So we had issues to start off with the beer getting too hot, not too cold. So I don't have to install coolers and everything to actually cool that down and still rods when it into them and stuff. It's just a nightmare. Easy. Beer down the drain and all this. I had 3 new beers in the tanks already, ready to go. So when we got over the initial scare of how we're going to do this, I was able to announce that we had 3 new beers going straight to market in bottle for the public. One of them was Umbongo, which is the mango Nipa. One was Caribbean, which is the pineapple IPA. And the other was Black Forest Gateau Stout.
All products, right?
All 5.
Local mangoes.
Yeah.
I'll try. Yeah, I'll
Local
try a
pineapples,
little bit.
yeah.
Hey for Mango Farm.
Yeah. Cheers. Thank you.
A Nipa is a New England IPA.
Ah.
So it's a bit thicker on the mouthfeel.
Yep.
Should be hazy. This one's cleared.
As in you clear?
Had those 3 beers because they were so different to what we did before as well. A lot of people talking went wildfire on social media, and we turned from a brewery that was doing just about all cask. Not pointing there, there were casks there. The casks over there. To a brewery that had to do all bottling. Now that time we were just bottling because it was all done by hand, and our hand bottling is all up there still, just in case of emergency if we ever do need it again. And we basically just pump up into that 200 litre tank. That comes down by gravity into a bottler, hand bottler. Then take it off, hand cap, hand label, hand stamp. It was a lot of work. And it was great that we had the success from the off really when lockdown hit. However, all of a sudden I didn't have time to do it all. Because filling up casks, I could do 750 litres of that in about 2 hours. Filling up bottles takes about 2 days. So we had real, it's an issue for us because we use so many different fruits and stuff like that. You're going to get wild yeasts around the brewery, and they can cause issues. But one of those issues is overcarbonation. And if you read through like our Untapped, if you go to the older ones, there's a lot of complaints about bottles going pop and beer going everywhere. It's simply because we had things in there which weren't working. I rolled out a cask out of the fridge one day, and literally the plastic bung that's in it went bang past my head. You can see in the roof just here there is a nice little indentation. That's where I hit. Swiftly followed by the beer. And I had the challenge of working it out to do another one. Go on the field, go on! She's had enough exercise today. Oh yeah, look at me like that. Do something for a bit different.
Yeah.
So I like doing things differently. The last group asked me about pumpkin ales because they've been to America and they really like the pumpkin Halloween ales. And they said, why don't I do one? And my answer is simply because everybody bloody does one, and it bores me. I don't want something that everyone has.
Yeah.
Everybody has coffee stouts, coffee porters. I love coffee. I'm a massive coffee fan. So I want to do something different with it. So I came up with coffee IPA. So, these are our limited edition design cans from Wildcraft that we sponsored the music festival. So it tricks people this because it's a pale beer, which people don't really expect when they're talking about coffee. I'll take that one. So what we do with this, it ferments in one of the fermenters. I then put 10 kilo of crushed coffee beans. When I say crushed, I mean we get them in the nice Hessian coffee sacks, and then I use one of those tumblers, I don't know what the proper name for it is, and I literally just go over the whole thing, smashing them up. They sit in the bottom of the conditioning tank and it sits on that for 10 days or so.
In the bag?
Not in the bag.
No, okay. So you just tip it in?
Yeah.
There we go.
So yeah, that gives that really nice coffee flavour.
Yeah, no, it's quite strong. That's the other thing about like chocolate stouts and coffee stouts. It's like, oh, it's a chocolate. Is it? I'm getting like a hint of cocoa. Yeah, it's just basically stout.
Yeah. We'll go on to our Black Forest Gateau Stout next.
Mm. I'm interested to hear how you make that. You smash up and save that.
We use fruits in really different ways in each of the beers. Don't end up being a bit of a pain. So we like putting them in here.
Yeah.
It does hardly anything, so it just does its job.
How much yeast do you have to put in?
We currently use dried,
Yeah.
a batch of that size, you're looking at about 600 to 700 grams.
Yeah, so not much.
Not much, no. Yeah, 700 grams. A lot of places will rehydrate the yeast before they put it in. But what we found was the efficiency of our cooler means that the liquor comes out at 30 degrees, which is perfect for rehydrating yeast. Plus, we can do it as the liquor's going in, so it hydrates it as well. Once we turn the cooler on here, that then comes down in a couple of hours to the right temperature for the yeast, so it just does it all for us. So it means I don't have to remember in the morning and make sure I get everything sterilised ready for a yeast rehydration, which is great.
Right, how do you get all the sugar taken your grains? Is it the mash?
That's all in the mash.
Yeah.
So it's just the water at the right temperature.
Okay.
And you have to get the right temperature.
Yeah.
If you go above or below, you'll get different strength sugars.
Yeah.
So you get a longer or shorter string sugar, which one will make the beer sweeter, the other will make it a lot drier.
Yeah.
However, you'll get more ABV out of one and less out of the other.
Yeah, that's something to do with the mash time.
Yeah, it's all that. So all the once it's out of there, there's no more.
Yeah.
It's just coming in here to boil, and that's where all the sugars are for that yeast to eat. And what we do is we do exactly the same as a home brewer would.
Oh,
We use a
right.
hydrometer,
Okay,
and we just bung that in. Water is at 0, which is about there. The sugars in it make it float more. You then take the reading off it, do a calculation. As that ferments out, the sugars disappear, so it goes down. Compare the first reading to the last reading, and you get your ABV. We always overbrew. So everything's always over strength when it goes into a tank. If it's under strength, I can do nothing about it. If it's over strength, I can dilute it. And we have to get the ABVs right, because otherwise you get in trouble.
Yeah. And is that?
Yeah.
Climb this ladder. Oh, no. How many of you have?
Just think, I have forgotten, so we're moving next year. So March, we're moving to small. No, I have said that, mate. Moving over to small brew. We'll actually be able to move around a bit with these tools there. However, it's all on one floor. We can still drink. We can still do that part of things.
How much are you expecting your output to increase with bigger facilities?
The new tanks are 2,000 litres. So literally, I'll be able to do 3 days of brewing in one go. It's so nice.
And is there, and is the demand is there?
Yeah. So I've turned down 2 wholesalers this year,
Right.
just because we couldn't meet the demand. So I did forget. So there are like nibbles at the back there. Have anything while you're drinking. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. And it isn't just the fact that we've got that 2,000 litres. So I'm taking 2 days brewing out. It's also that we've got 2 more 2,000 litre tanks, fermenters. So we're actually increasing from what we can do now, which is about 3,000 litres every 10 days, to 8,500 litres every 10 days. So it's a massive jump forward.
So basically, this doesn't run because you don't have the tank storage.
Yeah.
Yeah, but soon you'll be able
Get
to
tanks.
run your new boiler.
Yeah.
More regularly.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
No, won't be as regular.
Because you're
Because we're actually doing
your tank is
2,000 litres,
bigger.
not 750.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Yeah. So.
And obviously you've mentioned kind of cost and things like that quite a few times. So, is like the bulk of the cost in this kind of side where you're doing the mash and you're doing the boil, or is it predominantly in the kind of sitting in the tanks? Did you say these are electric, so they kind of monitor themselves?
Yeah, I mean, our electric bills have gone through the roof this year.
Yeah.
We're now looking at nearly £2,000 a month just to run, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Considering it was probably almost half that a year ago. However, we have got more tanks in here now, but it's a huge jump.
Yeah.
But yeah, the ingredient cost is reasonably low. The duty reasonably high. And then the biggest costs are in the packaging. That boxes have gone up 7% month on month this year. Boxes.
Like cardboard boxes?
Like cardboard boxes.
All right.
There was a cardboard shortage this time last year. We couldn't get boxes to send stuff out last year because Amazon bought the whole lot up. They bought all the board.
Yeah.
So even people that had orders were told you can't have it now because it's gone.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. I've seen it
Yeah.
a few times on YouTube.
So Brewbacker is our talisman, our logo. Here's the sick thing of my mind. Yeah, basically, I created the first designs for our beers. They were all very bougie, you know, silhouettes and all nice. I took them to a local pub, and he was very honest with me and said, "Mike, your beer could be the best in the world, but you're not going to sell it with those designs." So at that point, I went to a proper designer and told them basically I wanted a monster or a character, that's what I originally said, that would represent Brewery. He came up with Brewery. We ran a competition to name him, and he
No one
really.
came up with Brewing with Roots.
No one came back with that. Actually.
It might have been before that.
Yeah, I think it probably was.
Yeah.
But yeah, Brewbacker won, and yeah, it has been the thing that really kicked us off as a brewery because people saw that on the shelves and they went for it. A lot of people ask me why you pink. It's pink because it stands out. Simple as that.
Disney haven't sent a cease or desist yet.
No, we're waiting for it. Bring it on.
That's the sign that they've made it, right?
Woohoo! Don't start making it. If you find it for me,
They're like-
find it all. Fetch it.
What do they do?
Like,
Go get it. Fetch it.
Whiskies and gins. Gin, I think.
Well,
So they are kind of space. Sorry.
it's in the, yeah, it's in the.
Oh, that was quick. I wasn't expecting that. I thought I'd got rid of you for at least 5 minutes there.